Ladies and gentlemen, there's a new phenomena that's happening in Malaysia that will affect the real estate prices phenomenally. Guess what is that? There's a lot of Chinese coming into Malaysia. And I think this is important for everybody, no, not just between Malaysians, but also Singaporeans, because Malaysia, especially JB, is one of our choice location for retirement, right? So let's watch on and analyze and see what's happening. So currently, right now, there's a huge influx of Chinese into Malaysia that's causing a property boom. And is this a blessing or a curse to Malaysia? And is this a blessing or curse to Singapore, right? Let's watch on, shall we? So how many Chinese citizens are there in Malaysia right now? Currently, right now, it's an estimated 150 to 200,000 citizens and growing. So the Chinese immigrants to Malaysia has doubled on students and investment search. The number of Chinese citizens living in Malaysia has almost doubled over the last 3 years, caused by a jump in number of students and new investors. Today, there are easily 150,000 or even 200,000 Chinese in Malaysia, said the Director of Institute of Chinese Studies in University of Malaysia. That's up from 82,000 in 2022, and this is already a very conservative estimate. Now, from my experience going to Malaysia, I've been a lot, spent a lot of time in KL and in JB. I encountered so many Chinese, right? And very interestingly, you might say that, oh, but 200,000 is a very small population size. But these 2,000 Chinese, a lot of them are big spenders with an eye, especially for property and businesses. And mind you, these are very interesting phenomena. Currently, right now, there are 25,000 of them currently on MM2H. And in fact, it is not Singaporeans that make up the biggest number of MM2H, but the Chinese are making the biggest number of MM2H holders. So a total of 56,000 active MM2H pass holders as at January of this year, said the tourism minister, of which China held the highest number of MM2H pass holder at 24,765. That's followed by Australia, South Korea, Japan, Bangladesh, and United Kingdom. Okay. As for Taiwan, United States, and Singapore, India, each have only 1,000 active MM2H holders. So actually, the Chinese right now are eyeing in coming to Malaysia in big, huge numbers, and it's growing, and I can see them with my own eyes whenever I go to Malaysia. So actually, among the Chinese, who is coming to Malaysia and what do they come for? Let's watch on. So who from China is coming to Malaysia? Well, essentially, these are people who needs a China plus one strategy. Now, there are essentially a few groups of people, but I can categorize them generally into two types. Number one, these are Chinese that are fairly rich, not extremely rich, but fairly rich. Those extremely rich will come to Singapore. Those rich and wealthy that yet cannot come afford to Singapore, they will come to Malaysia and set up a backup, right? Because they are being, in some sense, having some political and security pressure in China because at one point in time, the Chinese government was going after the rich. So they kind of like seek an alternative position somewhere outside China, and Malaysia seems to be a very far away place outside the tentacles of the Chinese government. And they actually set up a home there, right? And then this group of people is not trivial. There's quite a lot. I met some of these people, and I also met the super rich in Singapore. These are people who suddenly need to get out of China, for fear of policy of the Chinese government going after the rich. There's also a very significant group of people. They are actually not exactly escaping the tentacles of the Chinese government, but now escaping the tentacles of the US government. Now, you need to understand that the US government right now is going after the Chinese companies. There's a lot of trade restriction, tariffs, and things like that levied on Chinese company. So what did this Chinese company do? Very smart. They set up shop in Malaysia, they set up shop in Singapore. And as a result, when these companies now export into US, it's not a Chinese company anymore. It is a Malaysian company or a Singapore company exporting goods out of Malaysia and Singapore into US. So they're not officially Chinese company anymore. But the bosses, the shareholders, okay, are all Chinese. Now, as such a company is Shein. Shein, a very, very famous affordable apparel company, They basically set up shop in Singapore and become a Singapore company. Right? This is what I call nationality laundering. So they, instead of money laundering, they're laundering their nationality, and now they don't get persecuted by US tariffs. So a lot of these Chinese are now in Malaysia for this purpose as well. They could be managers, they could be business owners, or just workers, right? And there is an explosion of Chinese companies operating factories over the last 18 months in Penang. Johor, a Malaysian state known for its industrial manufacturing sectors, has also experienced a surge in inquiries from Chinese companies. These are a real current pressure right now that's happening in Malaysia in a big mega way. Now, it also helps that Prime Minister Anwar is making a big push to attract people and investment. Malaysia has been making a hard pitch for Chinese investments and wealthy individuals since President Anwar Ibrahim took office in late 2022. He made 2 trips to China, hosted Chinese Premier Li Qiang, also met up with Xi Jinping, I believe, okay, and basically said that they want a stronger bond and relationship with China. So it is a very aggressive push. He's one of the top salesmen from Malaysia, and there's attracting a lot of Chinese interest in Malaysia. Truth be told, there is a lot of Chinese students. They are also going to Malaysia, and one of the main reason, if I done my research correctly, is they want to escape the intense study competition in China. Many Chinese students are attracted by the lower fees and lower competition in university places. So one of the students called Xiao Fei said that I didn't do well in university entrance exam back home. This is called Gao Kao. It's like our A levels. Right? It's one of the most pressurizing exams. It's like life and death. Your whole career is decided by this one exam. I could only have gotten a mediocre school, and it would have been more expensive. And then he decided that they'll go to Malaysia and have a decent place in National University of Malaysia. Many Chinese students no longer feel welcome in US or Australia. That is true. The university there are very against China Chinese right now. And this is also the case for US and increasingly more in UK as well. So instead of going there and get bashed by the Ang Mohs, right? He said that in Malaysia here, there is no China bashing, and he doesn't want to be singled out and to be demonized every day. And I think that's true. There are currently now 44,000 Chinese students in higher education. 44,000, that's a phenomenal number. I don't think in Singapore there are 44,000 Chinese students. There are a lot of students. They are also driving up housing demand in Malaysia because many families find that it's actually cheap and more convenient to buy a house instead of renting one, because they have accompanying families who come and buy houses as well. So you heard of this thing called pay to mama. When the children come, the mother comes with them as well to accompany them to study. So as a result, you will see a lot of all these students as well. Well, do these families have money? Well, these are generally middle to middle high income families that are seeking affordable location. Okay. So most of these Chinese new arrivals in Malaysia are middle class families who see Southeast Asia as a more affordable destination, or students shying away from anti-Chinese sentiment in the West. Mind you, I'm now in Europe, I see a lot of Chinese students. They are freaking rich, man, very wealthy. So how about their housing, right? So where are they buying right now? Well, interestingly, they are buying up all the KL prime area in Penang, Malacca, and JB. Those rich ones are actually buying in KL prime areas such as the CBD area, Bukit Damansara, Bangsa, and Kenny Hills. These are atas location. While KL's Mont Kiara neighborhood has been more for expatriate residents. Nowadays, because the MM2H scheme, a lot of them are coming to there as well. And on top of that, the Penang and Malacca, where life is more slower and peaceful, they are also attracting the Chinese, right? So it's for JB as well. So what are they buying? They are buying houses at generally between $1 to $4 million, okay? So they're either buying landed or high-rise apartment, especially in KL and Johor, up to 2 freaking million ringgit. And Malaysia allow foreigners to buy property only in the upper tiers of the real estate market, priced at 1 million and above. So the locals are priced out of market. But the Chinese find this very affordable. And when they look at high-end condominiums, they don't buy low-end ones. Okay? They buy those that are 4,000 feet of built-up area as well. So these are very rich Chinese by Malaysian standard. Now, they are not only just buying residential area, they are also buying industrial areas as well. That's because they want to expand their operation for international export. And I talked about the reason just now. of how they're setting up shop in Malaysia to escape anti-Chinese tariffs. A assistant general manager of this particular development, which is building a 500-acre industrial park in Negri Sembilan, he said just this month alone, more than 50% of inquiries we received were from China. And demand is more than supply, and we can really see this year, last year, and this year. Of course, a lot of them are also renting instead of buying. So therefore, rentals are also driving up as well. So a real estate agent called Nigel Lee said, I have China's clients this year who are looking to rent a home for short-term stay of 3 to 6 months because they're looking in town to buy a holiday home for their families. If you were to talk to the Chinese, their first choice is definitely Singapore. Who would not want to come to Singapore, right? But Singapore now has a 60% ABSD for foreigners. That's killing, all right? That's killing. That's also killing Singaporeans, by the way, ABSD. So if you want to, and you want to buy $1 million house, you got to pay 600,000. And that's really ridiculous, right? So what they used to buy in Singapore, they can buy a few units in Malaysia, and that just doesn't make sense, right? So a lot of them decided that, property tax in Singapore is just ridiculously expensive. So go Malaysia. And those people who buy in JB has a option of going Singapore easily by easy travel nowadays. A lot of them are avoiding Singapore because it's just too expensive and go inside Malaysia. So what's the impact on property prices in Malaysia right now? Rentals are rising faster than expected. Okay, yes, it's still lower than pandemic, but it's rising very fast. So property prices are increasing rapidly. Malaysian house owners saw their property value jump 42% in the last 10 years. That's very significant. I'm going to say something very sensitive. A lot of Singaporeans may not agree with me. I've seen it with my own eyes. I got lots of Chinese friends. My best friend from university are from China. And I will just say this, you're going to ask any Chinese, most of them will quietly tell you this. From my observation, many Singaporeans are less welcoming towards the new Chinese immigrants. We don't quite like them, okay? We don't quite like them. And although we may or may not say it, but the Singapore Chinese don't quite like the Chinese. Right? Some of them even look down at them. Some of them say that, you cannot speak English, shame on you, and things like that. And we don't welcome them with open arms. And to be fair, it's not just the Chinese. We also don't like the Indians. We don't like anyone from overseas, right? We are very protective right now. But that's not the truth for Malaysian. The Malaysian treat the Chinese with very high regards and respect. In fact, I think Malaysian Chinese have a part of them that think of China as their ancestral land, right? I don't think any Singaporeans give a damn about China right now as our ancestral land. But there are many Malaysian Chinese that actually think of China still as an ancestral land. When you speak to Chinese, and sometimes when you say something insulting about China, some of them will talk back to you, and I noticed that in a very interesting way. So this is the new phenomena. I have Malaysian viewers right now. Can you please let me know whether that is true? This is a very anecdotal. I'm also looking at news article on the ground. How do you all feel? As for Singaporeans, you will also notice that the Chinese that cannot afford to come to Singapore, they're all going to Malaysia and buying up your retirement, retirement place, whether you want to rent or want to stay. So this is a very interesting phenomenon. Let's watch on and see whether this trend comes out in a big way as well. Thank you for watching. Remember, like, subscribe, and join us on our Telegram channel. I'll see you in a day or two. Bye-bye.